Dearly redheaded, we are choosing consciousness today to get through this thing called grief. Interesting word, grief. It means love, which makes for a mighty good joke. But I'm here to tell you, there's nothing else. Just joy. And if the big picture tends to bring you down, go crazy once your life goes. Woo!
I'm here this morning with my friend Carole. She's going to stay on for Thursday and Friday's episodes this week. And Mother Nature just interfered and cut us off. And I'm going to tell a joke that I told over again. A story. So Carole and I went to high school together. Carole's a redhead. Her sister's a redhead. There was another redhead. There was 4 of us that hung out. Do you dye your hair, Carole?
No, I'm going gray gracefully.
Wow. I dye.
Yeah.
I dye every 4 weeks. I hate it.
I'm lucky because it's going gray underneath, not on top. I think I would change my mind if it was the other way around, but
Oh, I'm gray.
right now.
I think. Anyway, that's just a side note. It has nothing to do. So anyway, there was 4 of us redheads that hung out in high school, and Carole's sister Kathy and I both had lead feet, and I had a Celica 5-speed, and Kathy had a K car, and inevitably, Kathy would kill me driving down Route 1 because she was just so much better at risking her life than I would do. But the funny story is Carole's married to Greg. Several years ago. My God, several years ago. It had to be like
Like 30.
mid-90s. What?
Like 30 years ago,
Oh
maybe.
my gosh, 30 years ago. Greg is an outdoorsman, and he had been in the woods gallivanting and came across 2 puppies that had been left in a crate, abandoned in the woods. So comes back, tells us about the dogs. I don't remember if he had them or not, but he didn't have them because I asked him. I said, are they male or female? He said, I think they're female because they have nipples. And I said, Greg, don't you have nipples? Anyway, turns out the dogs were both male, and he kept one. But it always cracked me up that, he totally ignored the 2 dicks on these 2 dogs and went right for the nipples. So weeks ago, Carole and I are talking. Greg's in the background. I'm reminding Greg about thinking the dogs were female because they had nipples and funny-looking vaginas. And Greg once again said that he thought they had 1 row of nipples. So he didn't even picture the nipples paired off. Which then made me say, we've never really tested male nipples on dogs. I wonder if sucked on hard enough, if they would lactate. All right, there. I told it again.
It was funny. It was a funny moment, though. It really was.
It was hysterical. I think of that.
Very innocent. Yeah.
I think of that story. I've thought of that story often over the years because he just meant it. He was so serious. Anyway, Greg's different. So, Greg and Carole have Grace, and we're going to talk about Grace today. Well, Carole, why don't you, before we get into your daughter, talk a little bit about just how when you 2 met, you have such a sweet romance. Say whatever the hell you want to say about it. I'm floundering because I had to repeat that story.
But you did a great job.
Hey, thanks.
So Gregory and I think I was 21 when I met him, and he was 27. And I love the story because it was at a little local bar, and I was sitting at a table with a friend, and I heard someone behind me go, "Who's the cute redhead?" And it was my Gregory. And he came over and he asked me if I'd like to go see James Taylor. and that was it. Hook,
Holy,
line, sinker, I fell. Um, and we were young, so we kind of went back and forth and actually broke up a few years after that for like a whole decade. And we just weren't in the same places at the same times. And then reconnected later on, and it was like we never left off. He's my he's my soulmate, even if he does annoy me,
I had
and I
forgotten
annoy
that.
him.
I had
But
forgotten that. I
I could not imagine going through the life we've been gifted with anyone other than him. He brings tremendous joy to our life when sometimes it's not so joyful, but he always finds the joy, which I so appreciate him for.
yes, yes.
So yeah, so we've been there's nobody else in my life ever that just I connected with like I did with Gregory. So yeah, we've been married now 17 years, and yeah, still plodding on,
Congratulations. So,
trying.
so I brought you on. It's a little different than what I typically do because I wanted you to have an opportunity to talk about your daughter. When
Which I
was
so
what?
appreciate.
Huh?
I so appreciate that.
Oh, well, hey. We talked a little bit about this weeks ago, and you really
Hmm.
made me think about things that I think other people need to be thinking about. So that's the crux. But when was Grace born?
She was born in 2012, and um, I was old. I was 42, so it was a surprise pregnancy. Greg and I had tried, and we figured, well, you know what? We're just gonna, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. We were older, so didn't really, thought maybe it had passed us by. And lo and behold, I took a month off from work and we went to the beach a lot and I got pregnant. So um, that was great. And Grace did wonderful during the pregnancy. She was just a little small, but I was older. I was going through a tremendous amount of stress. My mom had like 2 strokes. It was just like crazy time. And, but she handled the birthing process just like a super champ. And it was right at the end of my pregnancy when they noted that there was a little bit extra fluid, but it was still in the normal range in part of her brain. I had to do all those extra scans because I was an advanced maternal age. And, but we really didn't think anything was going to go wrong. We passed the Down syndrome test. Um, and that was really, my innocence. That was the thing I was worried most about being an older mom because you hear that Downs is more prominent in older parents. So we thought we were okay. And then she was born. She did great during the delivery. And the second she came out, after, the second she came out, she couldn't breathe. She turned blue. Um, they got her back and they thought there was a lot of meconium during the birth. So I think that was the initial thought, but they got her back and then they handed her to me. And she immediately turned blue again. And my memory of that moment is just them whisking her away and me telling Gregory, don't leave her alone. So he ran along after. And it was a funky time because we were scheduled for a planned C-section on the Friday. And I think like on the Wednesday, there was a gas leak in the hospital. The maternity was closed. No, no induced, planned inductions going forward, what have you. But I took a walk and my water broke. So we were there. And she came when she wanted to come. But that was kind of the start of our journey. They asked me at that point, would I be willing to do genetic testing? Because she was a little off. She had a little wonky ear and little creases in her hand. And like looking back now, when I look at the picture, I'm like, yeah, she looked funky. But at the time, I just thought she was just stunning. So we gave permission, and that was
They,
kind of the
they
start of
saw
the
those
journey.
things on the ultrasound?
No, no. The
Once
only
she
thing
was.
on the ultrasound, on the testing that we had before, she was small. They pulled me from work. That was part of our story, and she grew a lot after that. And I thought that was just part of it. It was just too much stress. My mom had just had 2 strokes. We were going through a big family thing. And I worked really hard. And I just thought that maybe, seeing the growth, I was reassured. And then at the end, they noted that her ventricles on her left side of her brain, there was a little extra fluid, but it was still in the normal range. And I don't know if they say those things not to panic people, or if they knew more, but at that point in our pregnancy, I was like, we weren't going to do anything. And like I said, I thought we were free and clear, not realizing or thinking about the millions of other things that happen to babies. So when she was born, I remember praying a lot, hoping a lot that everything would be okay. But she was just such a part of me. I was just convinced that it was going to be okay. And she's such a strong little girl. She's just, from the second she entered our lives, she has just demonstrated an incredible determination and strength. And that when she was born, that kind of started a 4-month NICU stay. We did 2 months in Providence. That's where she was born. And we had discovered, and as this time kind of went on, I think she was 8 days old when we got the official diagnosis, although they said it was complete trisomy 9, which is incompatible with life. And we were told we would be lucky if she made it to her first birthday. And I just remember that conversation, and Greg and I were sitting on a couch, and I just remember pushing back into the couch, like trying to get away from the news, And my poor mom had come to visit us, and she was walking the hallways. And I think, just the sheer worry about what was going to happen. But at that time, the geneticists at the hospital gave us this antiquated, archaic pamphlet or paper, because it's such a rare diagnosis. At the time Grace was diagnosed, we were told there was probably like 150 people in the world with this diagnosis. And now there are much more, because genetic testing has come a long ways. And what we found out once we hit Boston's NICU, which is where we spent the last 2 months of our 4-month stay, they redid the genetic testing, and at that point we found out that it was the Mosaic form, which is good. That's why she's here. And the Mosaic form just means that only some of her cells have 3 of the 9th chromosome, because her diagnosis is trisomy 9 mosaic. And the 9th chromosome, like Downs, is trisomy 21. It just has a name.
Okay.
Trisomy 9 is too small for a name just yet, but it's T9 mosaic. So somewhere, we don't know, Greg and I were both tested. It wasn't something that we were passed on, because sometimes it's something that can get passed on. It was just a rare oops in nature. And they don't know if her body self-corrected, or if the cell lines that were impacted just died off and therefore allowed some normal cell development. I like to think she fought it off. But the only thing that really matters if you test the brain for percentage, I think, which of course you would never do. So a lot of people will get like blood tests, but it doesn't matter if your blood test is 50% or 2% trisomy 9. It all depends on which cells in which system were impacted. And for Grace, unfortunately, impacts her whole body. She, just for a picture of her, she's super cute, got the best curly hair, and I prayed it was going to be red, but no, we do have some golden highlights, so we'll take that. But she does have her left side of her brain is impacted more than her right, and we like to think of it as that her right side of her body doesn't work as great as her left side because of that. She has something called CVI, which is cortical visual impairment, which means that her eyes and brain don't talk smoothly. It's kind of tricky to know exactly what she sees because she's also nonverbal. Although she certainly we certainly know when she wants something. um, she has a unilateral hearing loss, so she has some hearing loss in her left ear. She has a tracheostomy, and that's how we got out of the NICU. As she grew as a baby, it just became harder and harder and harder for her. She became very positional. When we were in Providence, there was a heart issue that was detected, which is what sent us to Boston because Providence didn't have a neonatal cardiologist at the time. And so she has a tracheostomy, and that has allowed her to breathe, and she's done great with it. I remember the night before it was placed, it was after many, many attempts to do everything else other than that. It terrified me, absolutely terrified me. And I remember sitting holding her, and I was just bawling. And the NICU nurse was, asking me what was the matter. And I remember just saying to her, I'm going to be afraid for the rest of my life. And that's not far off. But I have discovered a strength in myself that I didn't know existed either. And so she has a trach to help her breathe. She has a G tube because she has a hard time organizing fluid and food in her mouth. And the G tube has been a godsend. She is able to do purees by mouth, though. That was something that we worked very hard on because food is fun. She can't walk on her own, but she can walk in a gait trainer. She has zero balance. Her cerebellum is impacted as well. So she has zero balance, but she's extremely strong. She has a plethora of other, oddities. And but the main ones that impact her really are the ones I've mentioned. Last summer, she had a spinal fusion done, and that was to correct a very a kyphosis and scoliosis situation that was pressing on her lungs. And unfortunately, that didn't go quite as we wished. So we're in the middle of trying to figure that out. But trisomy 9, because it is a mosaic form, and there's no real pathway to follow. And the pathway is we kind of discover it on our own because the mosaic means that everybody's different. Everybody, it's not, no two children are exactly the same, but the more children that kind of come into the more children that are discovered, and as they grow, and Facebook has got lots of problems, but it's been a lifesaver for us because it's allowed us to connect with people on the other side of the planet. But it has allowed us to gather some information that there are some similarities or some higher percentage rates of things that children might be impacted with this diagnosis. So Grace is part of a study done out of the University of Illinois. It's called TRIS, T-R-I-S, tracking rare and I won't try to say what it is because I'll mess it up. But I've my whole life with Grace, we have been determined to try to educate people about it and to share her story. So once again, thank you for this opportunity.
No problem. How many times has she been hospitalized?
Oh my gosh. This year
too many to
has
count?
been 3 times. She's had a lot of major surgeries in her real life.
She's 13 or 14?
Her first surgery was at 3 weeks of age. She coded in the NICU. she had a pyloric stenosis, which basically means that the exit of your stomach, the muscle is too strong and it closes it off. And she aspirated on her, she just vomited. I went to change her diaper and I lifted her wee legs and she vomited from her soul and coded, had to push the button. And it was, one thing we've noted with Grace, if there's a rare diagnosis, if this only happens to 0.19, whatever, then it'll happen to Grace. And the pyloric stenosis is typically firstborn male children, blah, blah, blah. She didn't, but they went in to repair that and she had her G-tube placed at the time. So that was her first surgery. Then she had her tracheostomy. She had to have her G-tube changed site because her stomach prolapsed. And for like a year, they were treating it as granulation tissue, which is just like a growth, an irritant kind of growth. But it was actually her stomach lining. And that just kind of like started. I think the first year of her life, she had 200 doctor's appointments. The first 2.5 years of her life, it was a blur. It was just a blur. I know, she's had to have a tethered spine repair. She's had to have, we've tried multiple times to help her to straighten out her legs by having tendon lengthening surgeries. She dislocated her knee 4 times and had to have her knee repaired. She had her huge back surgery, and 2 years before that, she had a thoracotomy to repair. The issue with her heart is kind of neat, is that the issue with her heart, her body self-corrected. So vein, was when she was being developed, it went the wrong way, and in correcting itself, it was her aorta correcting itself, it looped around her esophagus and her windpipe and redirected itself, but that caused like a loop around her esophagus and her windpipe. Didn't impact her windpipe, but didn't impact her breathing. But it did in trying to figure out why she was having some difficulties with eating. It was found that her aorta actually 100% closed off her esophagus, and the area above the constrictor dilated because the food would pack in there, and then she would by force it down until she couldn't do that anymore, and she actually choked, and we had a terrible incident with that. But so this was a big surgery. So she had that. So I think, and then eye surgeries and mouth surgeries, and I think overall she's probably had over 20 surgeries, and then a bagillion hospital stays for respiratory, because unfortunately with the trach, it is a direct line for germs to go right into her lungs. So long answer for your short question.
No, that's that's the information I wanted. She's 13 or 14?
She's 13. She's going to be 14 in April. A big teenager. She's getting sassy. I kind of like it.
How does she interact and communicate with you? How does she get her points across?
She's just phenomenal. She has some signs. She can sign more and all done, which also are like, yes, happy, or, go away. So she has that. She currently goes to a school for the deafblind, which we tried so hard to get her to keep her into a school with typical developing children, because I just recognized that, and my research showed that would be much better for her. And it was phenomenal. She was able to go to Meeting Street, which is an inclusive special needs school in Providence, for kindergarten through 3rd grade, I believe. Then COVID hit, and at that time we were trying very hard to develop a communication system for her, but it's tricky. And we had a phenomenal relationship, which I know is not the typical, sometimes the typical story, but our district really, really helped us to try to find the right school. And we did. She goes to Perkins School for the Blind in Watertown. It's the same school that Helen Keller went to, which I think is kind of neat. There's a big globe in one of their main rooms. That is the actual globe that Helen Keller touched to learn about the world. So I think that that's kind of cool. And they have been beyond phenomenal. So Meeting Street, I think of as helping her tolerate life, because you can imagine if your vision is off and your hearing is off, life can be very scary. She couldn't tolerate noise and busyness and people and what have you. And Meeting Street really helped her with that, really helped her build a tolerance and a trust in the world. But they couldn't help her with her communication. And Perkins is helping her with her communication. It's just, they understand how the supports that she needs, it's just part of everything. And that's what Grace needs. She needs her whole world to be supporting her learning, for her to learn. And she's made such growth since we've been there. It's just been amazing. It really has been the best thing for her. It's far. She's on a long commute. We live about an hour and 15 minutes away, but she loves a good car ride. And we've been blessed with phenomenal drivers. And and I've forgotten your initial question, Joanne. So redirect me.
You told me I may need to, and it's like I'm just listening. And
I'm telling you, she's my favorite subject.
I get that. Believe it or not, we're through the first episode. So in the second episode, I have more questions in the second episode. Okay. But just so we can capsulize this, so she's in school 5 days a week?
When she can, yep.
Depending how she's feeling.
It's a little bit shorter day. She's doing much better this year. A little over the summer, we feel like her back just kind of settled a little bit. And she's tolerating she has to wear a big brace system to support her head. But yeah, she loves it like I can't even describe. There's an expression on her face that is just so pleased when she's rolling out to her bus. She just loves it. Because you know what? She likes boys. And she has some good guy friends there that are tomfoolery and a hoot and a holler. And she's the best cheerleader of them. So she enjoys it very much.
Fantastic.
Thank you for listening and supporting Natural Born Redhead. If you follow the bouncing balls, please like and subscribe. If you know someone interested in sparing others grief and inciting joy, message me on Facebook or reach out via my website, Natural Born Redhead. J-Ma.